Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now guys, this reads like a begging letter to me. This letter that Chief Naya Nwodo has sent to Nnamdi Kanu. So it's an open letter, so it's not gone to the post office to post him a letter or anything. So this open letter that Chief Naya Nwodo has written to Nnamdi Kanu, it reads like a begging letter to me. So we shall rather go through the letter, and then at the end of the video you can tell me if you consider it a begging letter or not, or what you are making of it. So with that guys, I bring you this. Nwodo writes Nnamdi Kanu denies allegation of being Fulani stooge. So that's the headline. Nwodo writes Nnamdi Kanu denies allegation of being Fulani stooge. So now let's see what the chief has to say. President General of Ohaneze Ndigbo Worldwide, Chief Naya Nwodo, Thursday replied the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. He said that Kanu's latest allegation against him necessitated his response. Nwodo, in an open letter to Kanu, reeled out his contributions, performances, and quashed the claims that he colluded with the Nigerian army to attack Kanu's residence in Umuahia. So in Umuahia. My attention has been drawn to a recorded speech made by Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, leader of IPOB, now streaming on social media. The speech was ostensibly made in Germany ahead of a visit Senator Ike Ekweremadu and I were scheduled to make to Germany for a meeting of Ndigbo. In that video, Nnamdi peddled unprintable lies about me and rebuked Igbos in Germany for inviting me and threatened that I will not leave Germany alive. I would have ignored this speech as I have ignored many of his previous abuses and deliberate falsehoods previously broadcast against me. I had ignored them in the past, not only because the distortion and falsehoods were indirectly countered by the robust publicity of my activities and utterances, which negated its representation, but also because I thought it was indecent for a father and his son to be engaged in public disputation, especially when such disputation in our present circumstances will weaken our solidarity and portray us as a divided and unserious lot. It has, however, become necessary now to rebut his persistent falsehood, because not to do so will make them credible amongst those who may not have heard my side of the story. The IPOB leader, first of all, accuses me of being an accomplice in the invasion of his home of his homestead in Umuahia by the Nigerian army in Operation Python Dance. Secondly, he accuses me persistently of being a Fulani stooge who would always do the beckoning of the ruling Fulani elites in Nigeria. He also accuses my late father of being a Fulani stooge. Now, I think that's a step too far by Nnamdi Kanu. Leave his father alone. If you want to battle the guy, but his father is dead, so leave him alone. He carries on. He holds me and our Southeast governors and legislators responsible for the marginalization of the Southeast. He accuses me of being against the realization of Biafra and a saboteur to the Igbo cause. First of all, I am neither the commander-in-chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces nor a member of the Nigerian Armed Forces. Secondly, I never participated in any meeting where Operation Python Dance was ever recommended or ordered. Truth is that when the second Operation Python Dance was ordered, I wrote against it and advised against it in the media. I saw no need for it. I condemned the mayhem that followed it. I wrote to the GOC 82 Division Nigerian army on the violation of the UN rules of engagement by its troops. I listened to the brief of the Abia state government on the clashes between the Nigerian police and Nnamdi Kanu on the establishment of the Biafra Security Service without legislative approval or knowledge of the Nigerian police. I called for caution. I confronted the Attorney General of the Federation on his move to obtain an interlocutory order to enable him classify IPOB as a terrorist organization. When the federal government finally proscribed IPOB, I criticized it. I wrote to the United Nations Secretary General in these words: "It is a verifiable fact, other than recourse to the use of intemperate language, the indigenous people of Biafra IPOB and the movement for the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra Mossad campaign has been generally peaceful, non-violent, and in conformity with the relevant provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Their campaign has also been in conformity with the United Nations instruments and protocols on human, civil, and political rights. It is for this reason that I, the undersigned, without endorsing some of their methods of agitation, still make bold to observe that their protestations have remained at the level of verbal expressing, radio communication, peaceful street demonstration, prayer sessions, and lately a sit-at-home event in memory of the millions of Igbos who lost their lives during the Civil War. At no time has any of these groups resorted to the use of arms or violence. If their sit-at-home event of the 30th of May 2017 was an inconvenience, it was more so to the Igbo community of the Southeast and not to the people of the northern states or the rest of Nigeria. To therefore turn around to use it as a reason for mass ejection of the Igbos in northern Nigeria is a mere ploy to isolate the Igbos for another round of massacre, dispossession, and deprivation of their fundamental and constitutional rights. This, Your Excellency, portends the danger of degenerating into another civil war in Africa's most populous country, a breach of international peace and security, and a messy breakup of Nigeria, resulting in a massive internal displacement of persons and high incidence of refugee flows. I took the IPOB case to the British Institute on International Affairs at Cheltenham House, London, and said the following words: "Let me seize this opportunity to once more thank the Royal Institute of International Affairs for inviting me as President General of Ohanede in Ndigbo to speak here today. In Nigeria, Ndigbo, whose socio-cultural organization I lead, are, notwithstanding their historical experiences in Nigeria, the most loyal ethnic group to the concept of one Nigeria. We are the largest ethnic group other than the indigenous group in any part of Nigeria. We invest and contribute to the economic and social life of the communities wherever we live. We are proudly Christian, but very accommodating of our brothers of other religious persuasion. We are grossly marginalized and still treated by the federal government as second-class citizens. No Igbo man, for instance, heads any security arm of the Nigerian Armed Forces. Our area is the most heavily policed, as if there was a deliberate policy to intimidate us and hold us down. Our endurance has been stretched beyond Hook's Gorge for elastic limit. The Deployment of the Nigerian army under the guise of Operation Python Dance to the southeast, it was unconstitutional under Section 271 of the 1999 Constitution. Deployment of the army in the Constitution is only allowed in circumstances of insurrection, terrorism, and external aggression, not in killing of priests or fighting kidnapping. And in those circumstances, when they can be deployed, leave of the Senate must be sought. This brazen impunity in dealing with matters which concern the Southeast is provocative. The Arewa Youth Council, by issuing a quit notice for Igbos to leave northern Nigeria and declaring a Federal Republic of Nigeria without Igbo land, had committed serious infractions of the law by first declaring a new Republic of Nigeria, which exercises the Southeast unilaterally. They were committing treason by issuing a proclamation for Nigerians to leave any part of Nigeria forcefully. They are infringing the fundamental rights of innocent Nigerians as guaranteed by the Constitution to live and do business anywhere. So this goes on and on. There are pages and pages of this thing, and if I decide to go through everything that this chap has said, I'll probably end up doing like a 30-minute, 40-minute video. So I'll just see if there's any other thing that he says. Let me just see if I can summarize just the key points. So in essence, it's challenging Nnamdi Kanu to provide evidence that he was part of Operation Python Dance. He went on to list all the ways that he has been supporting IPOB all the way through. He goes on to mention that his home was bombed too in Ukehi. So that's his home in his hometown. So he goes on to list all the people that he affiliates with in terms of his struggle for Igbo emancipation. Professor Ben Umabweze. So Professor Ben Umabweze is one of the names that he referenced. So then he goes on to challenge Nnamdi Kanu, calling him a Fulani stooge. So let me just read you that bit. Nnamdi Kanu accuses me of being a Fulani stooge. I am sure no reasonable Igbo believes him. I have criticized President Buhari more than any other Nigerian. Perhaps what I don't do is to insult his person or call Nigeria a zoo. I was trained to be respectful. I can disagree with you without being rude or impertinent. So that is his response to that particular bit where Nnamdi Kanu called him a stooge. And to be fair to this fella, I have seen a lot of his interviews on different platforms, and he's very critical of the regime, but he uses elegant language for that criticism. So you can't expect somebody of his quality to be speaking like somebody from the streets. He is not from the streets. He's an educated man from a prominent family, and his language and his demeanor and his carriage of his person should reflect that. So he can't be going around shouting Jubril from Sudan and Nigeria is a zoo, because he's not of that type. That is Nnamdi Kanu and his followers. They are the rebel rousers, the rascals, but he is a gentleman. So he has to conduct himself like one. So now, conversations in the comment section is what I am inviting now. This man responds to Nnamdi Kanu. There's a lot more that he said that I could have gone through, but like I said, it's just really a matter of trying to manage the length of this video. So this guy just goes on and references all the names that I can reference. It goes on, yes, I served President Shehu Shagari and General Abdulsalami Abubakar as minister. I respect them notwithstanding differences of opinion we may have on the structure of Nigeria. Ojukwu was like my senior brother. Bianca can attest to our closeness and my loyalty to him. Former Vice President that is, says, Alex Ekweme was my mentor and friend. Nnamdi Azikiwe confided in me and treated me like a son. So this guy is just using all of the, is conjuring up all of the big names within the Igbo race to say, look, my alignment and my association are with these people. Look at the names I straight up: Ojukwu, Bianca, Ekweme, even the great Zik himself. He's even going as far as Zik to conjure up his name to align to his cause. So this, in effect, for me, is a begging letter, because this Nwodo now has seen what happened to that Ekweremadu in Germany, and he has read the writings on the wall, the signals. He has seen the smoke screens in the firmament that, look, the times have changed and things have changed. Because it's not so much what happened to Ekweremadu in Germany that is the thing, but it was the response to it that is the real thing. Because Nigerians all over the world are cheering what happened to Ekweremadu in Germany and saying to themselves, why did we not think of this thing before? Let's now go after all of them anywhere we see them outside the shores of this country. And these people, you know, they like to travel to come and spend their dollars. These people, they do. I mean, what is it called? Atiku lives in Dubai. None of them live in Nigeria. They all live in America, Britain. They especially love England, especially to live in the shires like Oxfordshire and whatnot. You know, they love that kind of lifestyle. So now the people in diaspora are now targeting them frontally and physically. This is a real worry for them, because now what do they do with all the money that they're stolen? So this one has taken the first step and has the foresight to immediately write a begging letter to list his CV, because this is effectively listing his CV. This is this guy now writing his CV to Nnamdi Kanu that Ogasa, look, I am loyal, permission to breathe. So he's effectively writing a letter to Nnamdi Kanu for permission to function. Is effectively how I am reading this. But how do you read this? Conversations in the comment section is what I am inviting. But before you come join me in the comment section to have that conversation, click on the red subscribe button so it turns gray. Bell button notifies you every time I drop a new video. Then let me know what you are making of all these rather in the comment section. So I'll leave you here, carry on with you there, but here I say please.